Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're stepping away from the desks and heading into the sim lab, virtually speaking.
Right. We've been looking at insights from healthcare simulation experts all over the map, really. Florida, Alaska, Maine.
Yeah, a real cross-section. And the goal is to understand how they train healthcare providers using these, well, simulated environments.
Exactly. And it's not just about the cool tech, though that's part of it. It's more about figuring out the bedrock principles. The rules for high-stakes, hands-on learning.
Okay.
Our sources give us a really good look at what drives these educators, their best practices, and also some of those surprising moments, the aha moments that made them rethink everything.
Right. So our mission here is to trace that learner's journey. How do you take someone who's maybe nervous, that classic deer in the headlights look,
Yeah, we've all been there.
and guide them effectively towards being competent, acting decisively, all within a safe space, of course?
Finding that universal playbook.
Exactly. Let's dive in. So first off, what actually pulls people into this pretty specialized field? Looking through the sources, there's this really strong theme, a connection between loving education and wanting that real-world impact.
Absolutely. It's that drive to connect the dots, bridge the gap between what you learn in a book and what happens at the bedside. We heard from people like Brittany Behrens, who went from intense nursing practice into the academic side, specifically because simulation felt like the best way to merge those two worlds, classroom ideas and real clinical choices.
So it's not just knowing what to do, but practicing how to decide under pressure.
Precisely. It's the decision-making muscle.
And it seems like another big motivator is seeing how different kinds of people thrive in simulation. It's not just for one type of learner.
That came through loud and clear. Sarah Hannan up in Alaska really emphasized this. Simulation kind of levels the playing field.
How so?
Well, think about it. A lecture might work great for auditory learners, but simulation, it's gold for kinesthetic learners, the ones who need to do it, or even visual learners who benefit from watching their peers work through the scenario. It preps them for the sheer complexity of clinical work in a way that, frankly, a textbook just can't.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like a safe place to make those inevitable first mistakes. But beyond the logic, there must be a huge emotional kick for the educators, too, when it clicks for the student.
Oh, definitely. Alejandro Vásquez Mercado shared a great example. Imagine running a mock code blue. It starts chaotic, right? People are unsure, maybe a bit panicked.
Total chaos, probably.
But the reward, he said, is watching that group shift. They go from feeling disorganized and anxious to actually performing these coordinated life-saving steps together in sequence.
Wow.
That change from uncertainty to effective teamwork, that's the core fuel. That's the satisfaction.
I can only imagine seeing that transformation happen in maybe, 30 minutes? It really proves the concept works.
It does. And for others, like Amanda Henderson, it was almost a more natural evolution, a way to combine her love for nursing education with a kind of creative problem solving. Simulation was the perfect outlet.
So a blend of passion and practicality.
Ultimately, yeah. The big driver seems to be improving patient care by building clinicians who are not just skilled, but confident and, dare I say, fearless, because they've practiced.
Okay, so the motivation is clear. It's about impact. But healthcare changes so fast. Protocols, tech, best practices. How do these sim experts scattered all over keep up? They can't just rely on old knowledge.
No, absolutely not. And that's why you see this heavy reliance on, professional engagement, structured learning. It's a field that demands continuous learning. A theme across all our sources was being active in organizations. You hear names like INACSL, SSH, ASPE popping up constantly.
Right, those acronyms. So what's the big deal with them? Are they just clubs?
Not at all. They're more like the standard setters. Think of INACSL, for example. They provide the standards of best practice. That's kind of the foundational recipe. Because good simulation isn't just about having fun, right? It needs to be a rigorous, evidence-based educational tool. So professionals like Vásquez Mercado, Dr. Ollendieck, Behrens, they're constantly checking their work against these standards, going to conferences, reading the journals. It keeps the practice sharp and mission-focused.
Got it. So formal standards are key. What about the grapevine, the informal connections?
That's hugely important, too. Amanda Henderson and others really stressed the need for networking, talking directly with nursing faculty, being part of regional sim committees or state networks.
Why is that so critical?
Because that's where you share resources, troubleshoot problems, figure out how to adapt those formal standards to your specific local challenges. It's peer-to-peer learning in action.
Okay, makes sense. So looking ahead now, what are the big goals? It sounds like it's not just about getting the shiniest new mannequin.
Right. Although technology is definitely part of the picture, the goals seem to fall into two main buckets: making the experience more real and making it more available.
Immersion and access.
Pretty much. On the immersion side, you have folks like Alejandro Vásquez Mercado, really exploring extended reality, or XR.
Virtual reality, augmented reality, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Using XR to bridge the gap between, say, the physical mannequin and a fully immersive virtual hospital setting, trying to max out that feeling of being there.
Okay, pushing the boundaries of realism. But what about the other side? Access. Because not everyone has a huge, fancy sim center.
And that's Sarah Hannan's big focus: making quality simulation accessible for everyone, especially people in rural areas, smaller clinics, faculty who might not have tons of resources.
So how do you do that?
It means finding solutions that are effective, but also, crucially, easy to deliver, maybe with just one or two people running the show. Simplicity and impact have to beat complexity when resources are tight.
Right, practical solutions. And what about growing the infrastructure itself?
Yeah, that's another focus. People like Amanda Henderson and Dr. Ashley Ollendieck are working on expanding their centers, but also pushing for more interprofessional education.
Getting different professions training together, nurses, doctors.
Exactly. Nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists, pharmacists training as a team, because that's how they work in reality, and building stronger partnerships between universities and hospitals.
Okay.
And finally, Brittany Behrens really hit the academic need. We need more research. We need to keep proving that simulation actually improves clinical judgment and, ultimately, patient outcomes. That's the bottom line.
This next part is really fascinating, I think. It's where these experts kind of hit a wall or had a realization that forced them to completely change tack, to stop doing what they thought was best and start doing what actually worked.
Yeah, these aha moments are powerful. And what's really interesting, like you said, is the contrast we found. Almost a philosophical split.
Right. You've got this less is more idea clashing with a kind of high fidelity is everything approach.
Exactly. Let's start with Amanda Henderson's less is more moment.
She basically found that sometimes the fancy tech was actually getting in the way of learning, didn't she?
Precisely. She'd watch students in a scenario and they'd be struggling, but not with the patient care part. They were fumbling with some secondary piece of technology, maybe a complex charting system or a monitor with too many bells and whistles.
Okay.
And her realization was, this extra tech isn't helping, it's hindering. It was distracting from the core learning objective. So she concluded that sometimes you need to strip away those non-critical elements. Simplify. It actually makes it easier to focus on what matters.
Wow, that's counterintuitive, isn't it? We usually assume more tech equals better simulation, but she's saying simplify to clarify.
Right. Less clutter, more focus. Now contrast that with Alejandro Vásquez Mercado's big realization. He seems to lean more towards that total immersion idea.
The high fidelity is everything camp.
Sort of, but his breakthrough was about what needed that fidelity. Initially, he was super focused on programming the mannequin perfectly, getting the scenario script just right, standard stuff. But his aha moment was realizing that for learners to really buy in, to suspend disbelief, you need high fidelity in the entire environment.
Not just the mannequin, but the whole room. The props.
Everything. Making sure the IV pump is set up correctly, having the right forms on the clipboard, maybe even playing subtle background hospital noises. His point was, if the environment feels real, learners immerse themselves more deeply. They engage that critical thinking more readily because their brain isn't constantly bumping up against things that feel fake.
Okay, wait. So Henderson says remove distracting tech to focus the mind. Vásquez Mercado says add more environmental detail to immerse the mind. How do we square that circle? That sounds like a direct contradiction.
It does on the surface.
Yeah.
But the key, the thing that brings it together, is remembering who this is all for. The learner, their experience, their emotional state.
The human element.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Brittany Behrens really highlighted this. She pointed out that while high-fidelity sims can be really engaging, they can also ramp up stress and anxiety for learners.
Which could shut down learning if not managed.
Right. So the complexity has to be balanced with psychological safety. And this is where preparation and debriefing become absolutely critical. That's the bridge.
Okay.
Dr. Ashley Ollendieck emphasized this too. Her big insight was the power of a really strong pre-briefing. Setting the stage properly. Yes, simulation is a safe place to make mistakes. That's the point. But good preparation builds confidence. It helps students feel equipped to actually tackle the scenario and learn from it, rather than just feeling overwhelmed.
So mistakes are okay, even welcome, but they need to be like informed mistakes within a supportive structure.
Well put. And Sarah Hannan had maybe the most concise summary of this whole perspective shift. Her aha moment boiled down to, it's about the learners, not about me.
Simple, but profound.
Totally. And that shift helped her solve a real practical problem. Hospital staff are incredibly busy, right? They might only have 20 minutes for a required training drill.
Yeah, fitting it in is tough.
So trying to run a super complex, high-fidelity scenario just wasn't feasible or even helpful. Instead, she developed these streamlined micro-learning events. Short, focused sessions on essential skills, often involving repetition, proving that even brief simulation moments can be really effective as long as they are laser-focused on what the learner actually needs right then.
Okay, that's incredibly rich stuff. So if we pull all these lessons together, the need for standards, that tension between fidelity and simplicity, keeping the learner front and center. What's the core advice for someone listening who thinks, hey, this simulation field sounds interesting, maybe they want to get involved?
Yeah, based on what our sources shared, the advice really clusters around three key areas: getting experience, developing dual skills, and plugging into the community.
Okay, let's break that down. Experience first.
Definitely. You absolutely have to seek out hands-on opportunities. Observe simulations, sure, but even better, participate. Henderson, Hannan, Ollendieck, they all stress the importance of being the learner sometimes.
Feeling what it's like to be in the hot seat.
Exactly. You can't truly understand the learner's perspective, the pressure, the anxiety, the relief, until you've experienced it yourself, both as a facilitator and as a participant.
Makes sense. And the second pillar was dual skills. That sounds intriguing. It's not just teaching, is it?
No, it's this really unique blend. Vásquez Mercado talked about this. You need the technical chops, understanding the mannequins, the AV systems, the software programming. That's almost an engineering skill set.
Right. The tech side.
But just as importantly, you need strong soft skills. Communication is huge. Problem solving on the fly. Emotional intelligence to read the room and support learners. Even customer service in a way. You're facilitating a learning experience.
So you might be debugging a software glitch one minute and then helping a student manage their anxiety the next.
Precisely. It's a very unusual combination. Requires real adaptability and, honestly, curiosity.
Okay, so experience, dual skills. What was the third one? Community.
Yeah, community engagement, stay connected. Behrens and Ollendieck were really clear on this. Get involved with those professional organizations we mentioned earlier. Pursue certifications, like the CHSE Certified Healthcare Simulation Educator.
Why is that connection so important?
Because the field moves fast. You need that network for support, for sharing ideas, for learning new techniques, and crucially, find a mentor. Find your simulation champion, as Dr. Ollendieck put it, someone who can guide you, especially early on. It prevents you from constantly reinventing the wheel.
Good advice. Don't go it alone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The overarching message seems to be curious, be open to learning, because things are always changing. But never lose sight of the ultimate goal, which is creating meaningful, effective learning that translates into better, safer patient care. #outro.
So wrapping this up, our deep dive really highlights the central challenge, doesn't it? This core tension for anyone working in simulation.
It really does.
You have to become technically proficient, mastering sophisticated tools to create that necessary immersion. But you also need the wisdom, the judgment to know when to pull back, when to simplify, to remove the distractions.
It's a balancing act. And underpinning both sides of that coin, the tech and the scenario design, is that relentless focus on the learner. Their psychological safety, making sure they're prepared, seeing it from their perspective.
Simulation demands vulnerability from the learner, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Those-
And the educator's job, first and foremost, is to create a space where that vulnerability is protected, even while pushing for competence.
Okay, so thinking about the future. We heard about trends towards more immersive XR, but also this critical need for accessibility, especially for rural or remote settings. That brings up a really interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. If you imagine delivering simulation education remotely, maybe using XR, to just a single learner somewhere far away, which part of the current best practice is going to be the hardest to standardize and deliver effectively?
Ooh, good question.
Is it maintaining simplicity in the scenario design? Is it achieving truly high-fidelity immersion through the tech alone? Or is it ensuring that robust psychological pre-briefing happens effectively when you're not face-to-face?
Yeah, which element becomes the trickiest when you scale down to one remote learner? Something definitely worth pondering.
Absolutely. We encourage you to check out resources from places like INACSL and SSH. They're actively working on these future challenges.
Definitely worth exploring. Thanks for diving deep with us today.